Hi, my name is Autumn Waycaster, and I spent my internship through the CIBACS program focusing mainly on computer science. Let's take a quick introduction of who my mentors were. So I actually interned with 4 different mentors, 3 of which have currently 30 plus years in either computer science, coding, or as an engineer. As you can see here, all 3 of these engineers hold very different positions and yet still have very similar experiences and all start out in very similar places. For example, my first mentor over on the left is Sean Munoz. He currently is a regional vice president technical accountants manager at Tanium, which is a cybersecurity software company, and he's held 3 positions there over the last 6 years. He also got his master's from DePaul University in computer science and started coding back in high school. My second mentor has a slightly different background, Brian Meyer. He is currently a delivery executive at Capgemini and has been there for 9 years and is currently moving his way up throughout. He received his MBA from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater and started as a mechanical engineer 30 plus years ago. And my third mentor has a very similar background to Sean Munoz in the fact that he also started coding in high school. He's somewhat different from Sean Munoz in the fact that he got his bachelor's from the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana in computer engineering. He's currently a senior engineer manager at Rally Health and has been there for the last 4 years and held 3 positions. My main mentor, however, is Jenny Wulas. Jenny Wulas is currently the web developer at Amita Health, and she's held 2 positions there over the last 8 years. She actually started as an art design major and actually started a career through art, and through some experiences discovered that coding was actually where she wanted to be and started coding 20 plus years ago. Now, why did I choose computer science? Back in freshman year, I was required to take the course biology, and I was actually very intrigued by the way that the coding of genetics worked, how specific codons worked only with specific codons, and then the series of codons created something, typically a physical characteristic, and I thought that was insane. And on top of that, I had a small knowledge of coding from the Khan Academy course that is teaching JavaScript. And because of these factors, I decided to enroll in AP Computer Science this year and absolutely love it. Over the course of my internship, what have I learned? I learned for a fact that I will not where I start is not where I'll end up. Several of my mentors started as an actual computer programmer and realized that they were just bored or didn't want to be there or were missing the people aspect of their job. I also learned design, and I learned this design based on the way that I constructed my product. The way I constructed my product is that it stands alone by itself and looks nice, but also when embedded on my website, it also fits in with the theme and looks very well done. And the final thing I learned was debugging, which is essentially problem solving, but with technical numbers. Now let's take a look at the code. Things to understand about the code before we really get into it. What is HTML? HTML is one specific type of coding language, and it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML is typically used to create web pages and such that are found on the internet, and it creates the format needed to construct everything online. To be able to run my code, I need something known as a compiler, and what a compiler does is it takes a high-level language such as HTML and converts it to a lower-level language known as binary, which you may know as ones and zeros. This binary is what the computer can actually comprehend and understand to know what you're asking for. Now that we have a further understanding of what exactly HTML and a coding language is, we can now start to understand the process of debugging. As you can see, my first line here says doctype HTML, but it says a lot more than just that. This is known as the doctype declaration, and is extremely important. What it does is it tells the computer what language you're coding in. And the computer needs to know what language you're coding in so it knows what to convert from. Another thing to notice is one thing you do need to pay attention for is errors. An easy way you can see this is, for example, if I remove the exclamation mark from the doc type HTML or the document type declaration, as you can see, several things happen. One, you notice the change in the color of the actual code itself. Two, you notice how the number 1 here, or the line number, changed from white or gray to red, indicating there is an error. However, this won't always happen when there is an error, and I will show you this later. However, clearly there is an error here, and if I were to try and actually run this code, I would get all sorts of errors, and the computer would not know what to do with this code. So it's important to make sure you have the DTD typed correctly. The second line that is essential is the declaration of language. What this does is it tells the compiler and the computer what language you're actually displaying, and what language you are writing in. So while, yes, I am using HTML, I'm also writing in English HTML, which is why this is important. And again, syntax is critical here. For example, if I remove these 2 quotation marks, notice again the line number changed in color, the entire code changed color, as well as that particular line. Syntax is important. Double check to make sure that the syntax you have written is correct. The third thing that you should know about when debugging is tags. Tags essentially define formatting of the items on the web page. And with tags, you need a start and an end tag. Line 3 here is currently known as a start tag. An example of an end tag is on line 18 here with the backslash written in. It's important that your tags are in all lowercase with no spaces and include the tag operators that also are known as greater than or less than symbols in math. An element is the next step in understanding code. An element consists of a start tag, in between content, and an end tag. Line 5 here is a perfect example of a properly typed element. I'll explain why. The title here is all lowercase and is encased in the tag operators. The in-between content is included, and the end tag is also included with the backslash, signifying it is an end tag and not a start tag. Another important line of code to make sure that it's typed correctly is the meta tag. What this does is it allows the code to be read. What UTF in this little line here stands for is Unicode Transforming Format. What this does is it converts to binary, which, as you can tell, would be essential if I'm compiling code. It's important to include this because not only does it mean that the code will compile, but also adds clarity to your code. Again, make sure your syntax is correct by removing the quotation marks again, for example. As you see, the line number changes red, signifying an error, and we saw as the color of the code all around changed. The final thing to look for if there are still lines that are marked as red is your syntax. Certain things to look for would be lines that end in a semicolon or even parentheses. By forgetting these simple small things, you can cause all sorts of errors and never even know why. Another thing to watch out for is to make sure you have the proper amount of start and end tags, meaning if I have a start tag, I have a matching end tag. It can be hard to keep track of. An easy way to do this is when you type a start tag, also type the corresponding end tag before typing any other code. The final thing to look out for is capitalization. And here's where you will see there won't be an error marked on the line number. For example, notice the first 3 letters of this variable are capitalized and the rest lowercase. However, if I were to change this to all lowercase, there is not an error. However, there should be, because later on, I actually call that variable, meaning I tell the computer I want to use whatever data is stored in that variable. However, because I changed the capitalization of the initialization of the variable, this variable is completely different than this variable. Even though they have the exact same characters, they're very different. And notice no line errors. So capitalization is extremely important. And double checking capitalization is honestly what takes the longest amount of time. Now that we've gone through the code to really see what I learned and the process of debugging, I can show you what the final product, clean and fresh, looks like. Here you can see my final product. It's a very nice, clean look, and all that hard work put into code is easily on display. The way that my product works is what is a job search engine. So the intent is you can put in a position you're looking for. So in my case, I would say programmer. And then if I would like to, I could add in a location, but not necessarily. I'll leave it blank for now just to show as an example. My final step is I get to choose if I am searching on Indeed or Career Builder through a radio button. After pressing submit, and after waiting a few seconds, I'm taken then to the Career Builder with jobs that have keywords such as programmer. As I mentioned earlier, I did learn the process of design. While I previously showed you how the website and job search engine by itself looks, I also mentioned that I learned how to design it around looking well on my website. As you can see, looking at my website, the color fits in perfectly and fits in with the clean, fresh, modern look of my website. Now I've taken a minute to take a look at the code. Is this really the profession for me? Some pros are this STEM field. This is the STEM field with the greatest gender gap. I see this as a pro because I like to challenge, and nothing is greater than a challenge than already being discredited because of my gender. Again, another pro is this challenging. I like a challenge. I like puzzles and trying to solve things. I love math, love challenges. This also allows for creativity, but with a structure and with order, which is something that I very muchly need and very muchly appreciate. This also gives me the ability to learn more because there's always more to learn. Languages are constantly in flux, growing, learning, and changing, and more are being created. Therefore, I will always have an opportunity to learn more, which is something I very highly value. This also allows for collaboration, but will also allow me to maintain my own project. I love working with others, but sometimes it can be really frustrating, or I just want to do my own thing. And computer science is a great place to do that. And it pays well. However, one con is that this is the STEM field with the greatest gender gap. And it's going to be very hard when you're already being discredited by your gender. It can also be very frustrating when you get stuck for days looking at code and it's not working and you're not sure why and you can't figure it out. It's aggravating to say the least. And there are lots of time to work alone, which can be less fun and not as exciting and or just mind-numbing. However, is this the job for me? Yes. I absolutely loved my internship. I had so much fun with all my mentors and learned so much, and I'm so excited. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions about coding or learning more about my mentorship, please feel free to reach out to me and contact me at the email on the screen. Thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a great day.